All right, Coach, welcome. Good to have you on the chat today, man, or the podcast. Excuse me, I'm a little rusty. It's been a while.
All good.
Just finishing up second year as a head coach. I'm gonna touch on that a little bit again. I'm rusty. I forget my format. But I gotta ask you first thing. You played high school football, played a little college football. Obviously a head coach now. Talk to me about how the offensive line has played an important role in kind of the teams that have had more success than others.
Yeah, so I'm a unique guy because and anybody that knows me, I'm a defensive line guy, but I actually started as a guard. So my freshman year in high school, I started at guard, and it was weird, obviously, being so young, but playing in the FVA against Kimberly was my second game as a 14-year-old,
Oh
as they were en
man.
route to state championship number three, I believe.
Yeah.
So I'm big. I like to say baptism by fire. And when I became a head coach, I was not really expecting to get the job. I was just trying to get my name out there in a new area,
Sure.
and was lucky to get the role. And the first hire I made was an offensive line coach, and
Yeah.
we had a guy in the building who had just became a our building sub, and he just finished up a career as a in law enforcement actually, and big guy, loves the weight room. He's probably the only guy that might spend more time in there than I do. So, just talking to him, he was so passionate in the energy. And when you're looking for an offensive line coach, I really, really believe that has to be, if not your first hire, your most important hire because of,
Yeah.
on offense, it's the heartbeat. It's the heartbeat of your team. If you can't score points, you're going to have a really, really long day. And I just think that any team I've ever played on that's been really, really good, even just any team I've been on, normally one of the best coaches is the offensive line coach. Shout out to Coach Patterson out at Southwest now. I just remember chatting with him in college, and I had
Yeah.
no clue about anything about football, and I would just pick his brain about random stuff here and there, and it's cool to see just the knowledge that an offensive line coach will also have,
Yeah.
and what they can bring to a table. So. When I was putting everything together, I was really, really lucky. So shout out to Coach Salas and what he does. And we actually were lucky enough to get another offensive line coach. So Coach Hookstead, his son's Miles Hookstead. So
Hmm.
we were lucky to get the older Hook, and Miles is a great guy, so we get to chat with him every once in a while as well. And we actually just had another guy that liked to be around the program, and he's like, I'm not quite sure, what I'd like to do. So we ended up having a third offensive line coach,
Hey.
and I truly, truly believe that that is where it starts up front. And whatever you do, whether it's wing T or spread, and in high school, a lot of people like to talk about identities, and this is good if you want to win football games, and uh, you can get caught up in scheme, but at the end of the day, buck sweep, and wide zone, and how you
Right.
execute it, and the mentality of how you execute it, I really think is important in terms of an offensive line. So I don't know if I went too far on a tangent
No.
there, but
No, that's awesome. I mean, that's so cool though that you've had those experiences kind of growing up and like you said, getting thrown into the fire a little bit as an offensive lineman, but um it is a position that it's obviously that's kind of the crux of this podcast is it's how where it came from, but um it's a hard position to find as a coach. Like you as a head coach finding that perfect offensive line fit. And then it's a hard position just to have because you're watching five guys, and it's as um, being a defensive guy coaching D line, like it's hard to watch four guys, let alone
yeah,
add in one more guy in there. So the more guys that you can have coach helping with the offensive line, I think is good and beneficial. And as you know, and start to see kind of the current landscape of college football, everybody's getting an offensive line coach. And, I'm sure in the NFL, there's teams that have three guys, if not maybe four guys. So, it's a vital role, like you said, a bunch. It's a vital role to the team, and um, you gotta have you gotta have somebody you trust as a head coach coaching that spot, and somebody that that you can kind of just say here, and this is what we want to run, this is what we're gonna run, like go take it, and it's hard to find that, especially at the high school level, I think, because it's you get some guys that just maybe haven't played or maybe played a long time ago and things are different, but still important and um, to every team. And it's funny, you mentioned DP, and that was I was going to talk to you a little bit about that because I've had DP on the podcast before,
Yeah.
and he was I just saw him down in Charlotte for the AFCA convention. So great guy, awesome, always there to if I've got a question. But talk to me a little bit about the St. Cloud stuff, man, because going there to play and then having that I remember when that whole situation happened. I've talked to DP about it from the coaching side of things, obviously, but talk to me a little bit through it from the player side of things, how that all went down and kind of what your mind was like during that time.
Yeah. Quick, super quick DP story. It's just as a coach, everybody knows that you get players that have great ideas every once in a while. And I don't remember what game it was. I walked into his office and I'm like, "Hey, coach, I think this air raid stuff's pretty cool, man." And he's like, "Tell me about it. What do you think?" I'm like, "I just think we should do it." And he is
Yeah.
like, "Can you give me any other reason behind it?" I'm like, "I just think it's awesome and it's cool. It scores a lot of points."
Yeah.
And it's just funny because of him, being such a savant with run game and that kind of stuff. Just have
Right.
a nose tackle walk in, so that kills me. Just thinking about the look on his face. But St. Cloud it's interesting. Me and my buddies still talk all the time, and we look back, and it's like um, it was a very unique situation when the program ended and we started getting recruited because you started to really see kind of the lack of support, that not only the players had, but the coaches had.
Right.
Um, from the standpoint of how many scholarships they were trying to fund the football team with. And you looked at our facilities compared to everybody else's and,
Right.
the amount of coaches they had. And it was like, wow. So, I really, really tip my hat to Coach Underwood, Coach Sipple, Coach Patterson, all those guys, Coach Mussman that made the wheels turn on a bus that was they're pumping gas into a diesel engine and hoping that we're getting down the highway pretty much.
Right.
So I remember everything was totally normal. We had recruits on campus on Sunday night. We actually got a kid to commit, and then we started just hearing like random rumors that like some team was going to get cut, and we're like, well, you can't cut the football team, so we weren't
Right.
really worried about it. And then Sunday night, for some reason, people had talked about some meeting being held, so we're like, oh, I guess we'll find out tomorrow. And I remember there was a bunch of us in an econ class, and then it was golf and the football team that needed to be in the meeting, and we're like, are we going to get cut right now?
Yeah. Right.
So, I remember everybody was really, really confused. We were texting the coaches. The coaches didn't know what was going on. So we showed up. There's just a ton of media and that kind of stuff. So they're shoving
Hmm.
microphones in your face, that kind of stuff. And um, the president and the athletic director came in, gave their statement, would not answer any questions, wouldn't talk to the media, didn't ask the media to leave, but it was fine for us to answer questions to the media
Right.
players. And yeah, so to be completely honest, I couldn't even tell you the actual reason for why we got cut other than
Yeah.
the money and
Money.
Title IX. But um,
Because the school still open?
I think so.
The school's that's what I was gonna say. The school's still open, right? They now I didn't mean to interrupt you. Has anyone ever kind of talked about like, hey, let's pull a UAB and run it back? No, it's
I know there were some seniors and like some that had like some sort of like a law background and they looked into it and had put something together like right when it happened.
yeah,
And it just kind of came to, we don't have any money. This is what it's going to be and go find new homes. And I think the coolest part about that, type of a situation is, with Coach Underwood, Coach Sipple, Coach Patterson, they all just lost their jobs. And I remember
yeah,
every single one of them was in there before every single one of us and calling places, getting guys visits, helping everybody out any way they could.
yeah,
I ended up at Northern, and right before COVID had happened and that kind of stuff. And I remember coming back through St. Cloud, and I wasn't quite sure, what my plan was. My dad had some stuff going on with his health, and I wasn't sure if I was going to keep playing football. And Coach Grimmett still wanted to get food on my way back through, so he bought me dinner and convinced me to stick in with football. And I didn't end up playing another game, but it convinced me to get into coaching. And
sure.
fast forward, and here I am now. And, I just look back at the whole time, and, my college career didn't go the way I hoped it had,
Right.
obviously, but um, just the learning of so much about not just football, but life situations and what life can throw at you, and,
Yeah.
how to, get through all that kind of stuff. So, um, grateful is a weird way to kind of sum up my experience there, but that's probably how I'd sum it up if I had to pick one word.
Sure. No, that I mean that makes sense though, because like you said, it's you kind of left your playing days with a bitter taste in your mouth, and that motivates you as a coach, right? And had
Mhm.
you, who knows, had you gotten to go play and played all 4 years, and maybe you would have been done with football, and maybe you would have just said, you know what, it doesn't, I don't want to coach, and I want to move on. I was similar to you in kind of my senior year, having a bad taste, and I didn't want to do anything with football. Like
Mhm.
I didn't even, because how old are you now? 25, 26,
24.
24. So see, I didn't even start coaching until I was 26.
Mhm.
So, it was kind of, football was, I was done with it. So, that's a great mindset to have though, is to be grateful for that.
And I think it's cool that you bring that up too, because I remember being a player and not the feeling like burnt out, but,
Right.
the constant grind from, even from the St. Cloud's, standpoint, where it's like it would have been nice if we had more of the recovery stuff and,
Sure.
a full strength staff where, Coach Sipple was our defense coordinator and recruiting his own area and coaching DBs and being strength coach on top of it. And
Right.
you can only have so many titles and tasks.
So
And
many hats, right?
yeah, and it's like I feel like we had a little bit more support for the student athletes back then. I wouldn't have felt so burnt out as a player, and yeah, I do kind of remember, coming back, and I'm like, wow, it's almost nice to have a little bit of a break from
Yeah.
football. And um, then, just how it happened, it was just like, I don't want to go out this way.
Yeah.
So, and now I'm on a vengeance tour that I'm not sure if I'm gonna end. So
Scorched earth. I always tell people it's scorched earth. That's good. Let's jump right into that too. Obviously just finished up or going into year two at East Troy. Talk to me about that whole situation, because people that kind of know my background and now knowing your background, you were like 10 minutes down the road from me at the time. Um, and so talk to me about that, how that came about, and kind of what struggles and what things you guys have done there going into year two.
yeah, so anybody that doesn't know me, originally from Hortonville, and started my coaching career there. So first year down in the southern part of the state. My fiance is from Jefferson, Wisconsin, so turned her from an Eagles fan to a Trojans fan. But yeah, so I honestly was just looking for jobs closer to her family, and I give props to her family for just telling me to go out on a limb and start applying for jobs. And
Right.
the East Troy one had opened up, and they had a business spot open. So it was one of the first ones I was looking at, and traveled down here, and met with the athletic director Brian O'Leary, and the principals, Stacy and Keen and Aaron Judd. And it was kind of funny when they first saw me, because baby faced kid walking through the door, and they're asking different questions and that kind of stuff. And one of the ones that really stuck out to me was, what makes you kind of, qualified to be a head coach? And, you answer it in a generic way. And I remember, Stacy had kind of had a look on her face, and I asked her, I was like, hey, if you want to ask, ask for it. She's like, you can't talk about age and that kind of stuff, but she's
Right.
like, you just don't have as much experience. So, like, do you actually feel like you're qualified? And I'm like, nobody's actually qualified to be a head coach.
No.
If you think
No.
about it, like, you're in charge of how many kids and this and that. Nobody's ready to take the job. So
No.
I was like, you might as well find somebody that is really interested in trying to be the best that they can and not fail. And I was like, there's one thing I hate, is losing, and I hate failing. So
Yeah.
you put me in the spot, I'll probably figure it out. Um, so yeah, it was awesome. And did the interview, and did the second one, and went well. And the biggest thing that they were just looking for was somebody that had energy, and somebody that
Sure.
was motivated. And the big thing was staying. They had kind of a little bit of a revolving door, and just getting to a place of normalcy. So
Yeah.
I was excited to take the job, and got down there, and it's something when you walk into a place and you share your vision, and then people are excited about it, and then it's different when people buy in and are excited
Yep.
about it and preach it. And coming from the year before, they had 27 kids in the program. So this past year, we played with 46 kids in our total program, which was a big jump. So of the 46, 33 of them were freshmen or sophomores.
Right.
So it's great to have just a big core nucleus that's young, but they're also very, very motivated. And I mean, one of our team captains, his name's Charlie, actually had a kind of a not an issue with the foot, but it was something he was born with like stress fracture and that kind of stuff. So he works out the entire season, and he ends up missing the entire season but our first game, and still dealing with it. He's having surgery here in a month or two,
Mhm.
but he's only a sophomore, and he has not missed a single workout since he's been injured, and he's
Yeah.
getting kids in the weight room and that kind of stuff. So it says something when you can get guys that are injured to work out, but it's different when you can get a sophomore to work out every single day and be the
Yeah.
guy pushing the charge. So coming in, it was just there's a lot of things that you want to fix and you want to do. And my biggest thing was, I remember my senior year of high school, and how much fun that was, and just to think that there was a whole group of seniors at that school that didn't get to experience
Yeah.
that without a varsity football season. I mean, how does that happen? So
Yeah.
not to say that's my biggest motivator, but that was kind of how I looked at it from the outside looking in, and that's what made me excited to take the job. And this next year we're hoping to have, or projecting, I should say, about 54 kids.
Oh, wow.
So continually slow climbing.
Yeah.
According to the postseason surveys, fingers crossed, every single kid from last year is coming back out.
That's awesome.
No, it's exciting, and it's tough when you don't have the wins in the win column.
Sure.
But we knew it was going to be a slow build to it, and there's the investment on the player side, there's the investment on the coaching side, and
Yeah.
I just think the excitement is there, the buy-ins there. And it's just going to be that continually, establishing a new culture, because there wasn't the expectation to work out in the off season. There wasn't an expectation to, go above and beyond and
Right.
do all the other things that a lot of these top programs in the state do. So,
Right.
it kind of went from, let's field the varsity team to, wow, we can do a little bit more than just field the team, and let's start doing something with it.
Yeah.
Getting into this offseason is exciting. We got our whole coaching staff coming back, so
That's cool.
it'll
That's
be
very
nice
good.
that the kids have that sense of normalcy and get to see the same faces on the sideline again this year. So
Yeah. No, stability. I mean, stability, as you know, that's huge. And I'm sure we as coaches, especially at the high school level, the small high school level, you hate to hear about moral victories, right? Like it's all about,
mhm.
oh well, we had, maybe not on the field, but this is great. But that's when you're starting out like that, and it's not a. I mean, I guess it's kind of a total rebuild, if you want to say, because you guys didn't have the varsity season. So to have those numbers, because what's enrollment at East Troy?
482 this past year.
So see, I always kind of say when I talk about football, like you should have 10% of your school enrollment should be playing football. So you guys are over that. So that's awesome that you've got those numbers and you keep gaining numbers. So obviously you guys are doing the right thing, and like you said, the kids see the stability, and the kids see your energy, and all it takes is one or two guys from last year's team to tell one or two buddies, and then all of a sudden you're in the 50s, 60s, and you're rolling. So that's pretty cool, man, that you guys are having those successes, and obviously you've heard it before, and I'm not telling you anything you don't know. Those will translate to Friday night victories, this year and next, and moving on forward. So that's pretty cool that you guys are doing that. Did you have any, like, um, because East Troy is traditionally like a basketball school, right?
Yeah.
Did you have any kind of pushback from any basketball kids, or do you have a lot of two sport guys out?
No, we got a ton of two sport guys. Honestly, and I'll mention just because he's a great kid. Seth Lingford is our starting running back this past year. When I took the job, everyone's like, "Oh, the best athlete, Seth," and he's a baseball kid through and through. He's going
Hmm.
to I think Culver Stockton for baseball, and they're like, "Oh, but he doesn't play football." And I just kind of came in throughout the summer, and you'd be working out, and being a guy that's been around some dudes before,
Yeah.
those guys work out differently, and I'm like, wow, man, it'd be fun to have on the
Yeah.
team.
Right.
And the conversations kind of just slowly, just being friendly and that kind of stuff. And one day he kind of came in and was like, "Yeah, I think I'm going to play football this year." And I think him just making that decision of I want to try something new, and
Yeah.
that was my big thing. I asked him, I was like, you can join. No, I'm taking whoever and anyone that can. So I'm just curious, what changed your mind? And he's like, just the experience with my friends on Friday
Yeah.
and having that, I just don't want to leave high school and not have that experience and regret it. And I think that's the big thing. I come from a very like grindstone, work grind, that kind of stuff when it comes to football. And I think it's important at the high school level that, yeah, we need to work hard, and the standard is a specific standard, and the expectations are the expectations. But at the same time, if you have kids that want to come out and play a sport and enjoy it with their friends, I mean, that's the reason they fell in love with
Right.
every sport they've ever played to begin with. So I think it's fun, or not fun, but interesting to try and find that balance for, you have the guys that football is their life and it's what they live and breathe and eat. And for
Right.
some guys, it's just another opportunity to make some memories with their friends. And, as coaches, I really feel as a high school coach, you got to be able to extract that in a very careful way, because you don't want to burn out the guy that is willing to work 24/7. And then at the same time, we got to try and get the kid that doesn't want to work at all to
Right.
try and match that. So um, I think just having those experiences with kids that's like, hey, I'm not a football guy through and through, but this is, what I want to do for now. And that's where I think one of our core values is being a great teammate. And I think focusing on, the kids, the players, and the experience of it at times with some of those fringe guys can help you get, some of the guys that I'm only a basketball guy, I'm only a baseball guy.
Right.
And we've been pretty good getting some of those guys, and we've got a couple more on the list that we want to work in down over our side. So, but I think it's just taking the holistic approach to the athlete, and making those connections, and
Yeah.
very generic, but the relationship key is really key in high school, man.
Absolutely,
You
dude.
can't make a connection, you can't talk to them. You're going to have a tough time recruiting them to come out and play for you.
I mean, I 100% like to me when I was trying to get some of those kids because there were a bunch of kids like when I took the job at my previous school, we went from 60 kids to 85 kids, and it was talking, I never pressured kids into playing. I never was like you're gonna do this or else or anything like that. It was just, hey, come check it out, ha you know, have fun, see if you like it, throw the football around a little bit, and if you don't like it, let's have a conversation. And I'll wish you well. If you do like it, great, you're gonna help us a bunch. And I've had it happen both ways where guys came and helped. I mean, I remember my first head coaching job in Iowa. Uh, there were like two or three basketball kids who everyone kept saying they should play, they should play, they should play. And I went and talked to them and kind of tried to, and their coach was trying to push them that way too. And went and tried to get them and told them, hey, come out and check it out. And it didn't work out. And they went on and had good basketball seasons. And I think one ended up playing baseball in college. But um, it's like you said, make the relationships because there's a reason they haven't played up and yet, right? Whether it's they
Mhm.
had a bad experience, they didn't like a coach, something happened. So if you as a new guy can make those relationships with them, um, you never know what'll happen, right? And
Mhm.
more often than not, it's going to be a positive, and they're going to come try like like this guy did, and it's not going to be a bad thing for them.
Yeah, I think and I don't know, this might go tangent, but you think back to kind of the trend that the like a Dan Campbell-ish, that CEO mentality,
Yeah,
where the head coach is much more driven on the player relationship side and the motivation, the leadership. Um, not to say that I feel like it's a huge trend, but I feel like you do see head coaches that aren't play callers or aren't schematically,
Hmm.
the greatest anymore, just because, at the high school level, especially, it's hard to even get kids to come out and play.
Hmm.
I'll be the first person to admit it. I'm not a good play caller. I'd probably even say I'm a bad play caller right now because I don't know what I'm doing. And
Right.
that's why I got coordinators that are much older than me, that have experience, that have done it before, that are teaching me how to do
Right.
it. But if you're not open and honest about that, then you don't have room for improvement. And I really feel like the spot that I'm good at, or where I make my claim, is being able to relate to players, and whether it's just because of my age, or what it is, but figuring out what makes them tick,
Hmm.
and get them in the right spot, that not only can they be successful for themselves, and keep themselves accountable, but it's that leadership portion of giving them every single tool they need to not only be successful athletes and students and that kind of stuff, but once they leave our program, now I can be a leader in whatever facet of life I am in,
Right.
whether I'm in the healthcare field, or a teacher, or a coach, or who knows what. Just giving them tools that they can be successful no matter what. I think that's going to be, you know, something you're going to see continue in high school, just because there's so many kids that just are not interested in doing hard things anymore, and sticking it out. And you're going to have to not be able to sell kids on the sport, but sell them and their parents on your vision, and then what you're doing for them is best to,
Hmm.
hopefully they stay and continue to participate.
Yeah. No, it's sad that football, it's not dying, right? It's not ever going to go away, but yeah, it's sad that I was just talking about this with somebody the other day. I can't remember who, but we don't get to go year round, right? Like
Hmm.
there's year-round basketball, there's year-round baseball now, there's year-round everything. And then football is unfortunately the hobby sport.
Hmm.
Not for everybody, right? Like don't get me wrong. Like you were talking about, there are some football guys, but like the majority of your team is going to be made up of guys that do other things. And everyone's all seen the percentages of guys that go play college football, little, and all that nonsense. So it is the hobby sport, and we have to, as coaches, have to figure out a way to keep those guys out, keep those guys happy, so to speak, and make sure that the the train keeps moving forward. Otherwise, it's gonna be bad for for everybody. So
Yeah, and I think that's a lot of it too. And I don't know if this will be a hot take, but I think a lot of it comes down to the strength and conditioning, and that's where we spend a ton of our time at East Troy. Is how can we make our workouts so that it's not just football, not just basketball,
yeah,
so that it's a full workout for any athlete that needs it, so that you don't run into the issue of the overtraining or the private
sure.
trainer and that kind of stuff. So that's kind of something I've been studying in the off season, and trying to find ways, and just to keep athletes even healthy, so that we're, a guy that plays three sports and doesn't have a single break, and then they come into football season, we got to
Yeah.
make sure that they're ready to rock and roll. So I think it's going to be interesting too, to see just the trends in the fitness industry, the strength and conditioning world, as all of this stuff continues to evolve. And it's weird, just the trickle down effect that NIL has on quite literally everything.
Yeah, right.
So
The worst, the absolute worst. No, you're right. I kind of get that. I hate when people talk about I've got football weightlifting or I've got to go. It's like, no, we don't like, no, we don't lift for football. You lift for athletic. It's athletic lifting for all sports, for all athletes. It's not just football lifting. So I kind of hate, I get what you're saying. That always made me mad when people are like, well, he's got football lifting. Well, no, he doesn't. Like, we might have a specific, like, we might have a workout separate than that, but it's not football based. Like, there is no such
yeah.
thing as a football lift, football workout. It's all for being a better athlete in whatever sport you do.
Yep, and that's where I can't remember who I think it was something yesterday I saw, but it wasn't that, it's not that football is working out in a different capacity. It's just that the frequency of their workouts, the
Yeah,
football team, they're going to lift more often than a lot of
right.
the other sports. So it's not necessarily that they're doing a different program. It's just that the volume or the frequency of it changes. So
Absolutely.
no, I think it's just interesting. And when you are a smaller school coach, I mean, those are things that are just as important as X's and O's, is because
Yeah.
you're sharing athletes. And some guys are who knows doing what. You can only get them to lift a couple times a week, and they're off to here and there. And but I mean, that's where I think too, just the time management aspect is so important. And that's one of the biggest messages I like that you like to spread is there's a lot of the misconception of, let's spend, 40 plus hours doing X, Y, and Z, when in reality, if we were efficient, you should be able to
Yeah.
get it done in this amount of time. But I like to post that I spend a lot of time doing something inefficiently, so I look cool. Like
Oh yeah, that's
that's
I see it all the time though. It's that and to me, I know I hate the term grind. Like to me, when I see people that preach or not preach it, but are like, oh, I'm a grinder, I'm a grinder. Like the definition of grind is to wear something away. Like
Mhm.
I appreciate the term grind in the sense when people are actually working hard and doing things, but if you're grinding, quote unquote, and you're spending, 5 hours watching Netflix in your office, like, are you really like what are you really doing that? Like, or are you just
Yeah.
wasting time to have the appearance of? So, um, but yeah, no, that always drives me bonkers. But
It's the beauty of my degree's technically project management. So
oh, nice.
I'm to a T.
All right, well, last question I got for you, man, then I'll get you out of here. If you could put together a Mount Rushmore of offensive linemen, from guys you played with, guys you've coached, or guys that you're like a fan of growing up, who would be on that five-man offensive line?
Oh man, this is gonna be tough. I'm just gonna go with the starting lineup. I gotta go. I can't cheat here, but I'm going to anyways. I gotta put Mark Tauger and Chad Clifton at tackles,
Okay.
just because I grew up with them, and like
Yep.
my earliest memories of just being a child are just watching them play. So
They were good ones.
though they were fun. I'll go honorable mention too for the tackle position, Robert Cracklow. I played with him at St. Cloud, and he was.
Okay.
I love that guy. He has one of just the biggest personalities, and just a goofball,
Yeah.
all in all. So, um, just not a guy you want to meet on a football field. Other guy, Jacob Guyette Dozer, he played next to me. We'll put him at guard. He was my best friend's older brother. And they stuck me right next to him my freshman year, and I would have not been able to do anything but without him. So it was nice to play with him, and he was one of those guys that could have played at the next level. He just
Yeah.
had no interest. So
Yeah.
he did his max outs once a year, somehow went up in every single lift, even though he never touched a weight, and that was about it. Um, I played center for 2 games. So I'm going to put myself there. And but no, I got to think of just a good center that I've always really, really, for some reason, liked the Pouncey brothers. I
Oh
can't remember
yeah.
which one played for the Steelers, but I used to watch quite a bit of film of just AFC North and Ravens defenses, and for some reason, even when I was like a 16 or a 17-year-old, he just always stood out
Yeah.
on film to me for some reason. I know he's not like the flashiest guy or probably anybody that's been on a Mount Rushmore before, but
No,
um,
the Pouncey brothers have been on it before. They're
oh,
pretty
perfect.
they're pretty good. Yeah, they're legit.
Good. But no, I just remember being, younger and
Yeah.
being 16, 17. It's like, whoa, how are they doing this like
Yeah.
that? And it was super, super cool to see. So, um, there's so many good ones too. And I think that's the coolest part about an offensive line is, there's the personality aspect
Oh
of it.
yeah.
Because every position has, a handful of people, and, wide receivers are wide receivers, quarterbacks are quarterbacks. And then in an offensive line room, you got, somebody from the country, somebody from the city,
Hmm.
the rich, poor, everything in between. And I mean, it's a fun group, and they have the biggest personalities of any group on the team,
Oh
and
yeah.
they're just fun, fun people to be around. So
They are. We
um,
are we are unique, that's for sure.
I'm a retired or veteran offensive line, whatever we want to go with, but I
You
also
were
had
you were a D
great.
lineman though. You weren't that far away.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
did have a great offensive line coach, Andy Colasso, and then his son, Tom. They were co-head coaches slash head coaches while I was at Hortonville.
Hmm.
And Andy just Coach Colasso did a phenomenal job. And I just kind of remember how he used to talk about the offensive line and the history behind it and the importance behind it. And I think that was, one of my earliest stages of just being so interested in football, because you think of, when you're little, just the cool uniforms and the score and the big names, and the way he explains stuff, just
Yeah.
the mystique behind football, and I really think that was probably one of the biggest reasons why I'm coaching today, and yeah, it goes back to the old line coach.
There you go. We're everywhere, man. All right, before I get you out of here, dude, do me a favor, drop your Twitter handle for everybody and anywhere else they can find you if they're looking for you.
Yeah, mostly on Twitter, just Coach Jentz. Other than that, if you want to follow any of us for East Troy kind of stuff, anything East Troy football, just on any of the platforms. But yeah, I pretty much, I feel like Facebook and everything else has gotten just
No, don't worry. Yeah,
overtaken
don't
by
worry
like
about that.
ads.
Yeah, it's
So
uh it's a cesspool.
yeah, so I like Twitter X. So yeah, if anybody ever wants to talk O line, D line, football, anything in between, yeah, just reach out, shoot me a DM. Anything, always open to talk, and anytime it's football, I'm there.
Cool. Well, I appreciate you coming on, man. Best of luck to you, and I'm sure you and I will talk a heck of a lot more before we get to next season. So thanks again.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, I appreciate you having me on here.
All right, buddy. We'll talk to you.
You as well.